We are counting down 8 unforgettable moments when individual golfers changed the game, not just with their play, but by forcing official rulebook rewrites. From oddball equipment hacks and signature blunders to controversies that brought the authorities and even the courts into play, each entry shaped how the sport is governed today. Who made officials rethink everything from fairness to technology and inclusion? Let us begin this countdown with number 8. At the 1987 San Diego Open, Craig Stadler found himself under a low-hanging tree, staring at a muddy patch of ground. To avoid soaking his pants, he slipped a towel under his knees before taking his shot. What seemed like a harmless move caught the eye of a sharp television viewer, who phoned in to report a possible rule violation. Officials reviewed the footage and determined Stadler had broken Rule 13, Section 3, which prohibits building a stance using artificial objects. A 2-stroke penalty should have been added to his score, but because Stadler had already signed his card without the penalty, he was disqualified after the round. The incident not only cost him a top finish and prize money, it set off a wave of stricter stance rule enforcement and made every pro double-check their scorecard. Suddenly, even the viewers at home could change the outcome of a tournament. Roberto De Vicenzo walked off Augusta's 18th green in 1968, believing he had earned a spot in the Masters playoff. But when he reached the scorer's tent, a single digit changed everything. His playing partner, Tommy Aaron, had marked a 4 for De Vicenzo on the 17th hole, 1 stroke higher than De Vicenzo's actual score of 3. De Vicenzo reviewed the card, missed the mistake, and signed it. Under Rule 6.6, the player's signature makes the card final, even if the error is not his own. The cost was immediate disqualification from the playoff and the end of his shot at the green jacket. De Vicenzo's quiet heartbreak was summed up in his own words. "What a stupid I am." The rule did not change, but the lesson was seared into the sport. Every player, no matter how great, is responsible for every number beside their name. Today, that signature is more than a formality. It is a contract of integrity that defines the game. Phil Mickelson arrived at the 2010 PGA Tour season with a Ping Eye 2 wedge that sent shockwaves through the locker room. The club was manufactured before 1990 and fitted with square grooves. The USGA had banned square grooves to reduce spin and restore skill to the short game, but a decades-old legal settlement meant those specific wedges were still technically allowed. Mickelson, never shy about challenging convention, used the club openly and defended his choice. He said that it was not up to him or any player to interpret what the rule is or the spirit of the rule. Other professionals, including Hunter Mahan and John Daly, followed suit. The controversy exploded after a January memo from the PGA Tour clarified the loophole but failed to close it. Outrage grew as players accused each other of violating the spirit of the game, even though the letter of the law remained intact. Within weeks, the tour issued a temporary ban on the club, and Ping's chief executive officer stepped in to waive the legal protection, finally closing the loophole for good. The episode forced golf's rulemakers to reckon with the tension between innovation and tradition, and it set a precedent that equipment exploits would not be tolerated even if they were technically legal. Tiger Woods stood over his ball on the 15th fairway at Augusta in 2013, needing to recover after a shot ricocheted off the flagstick and into the water. He dropped a new ball, but instead of matching the exact spot, he moved back about 2 yards to set up a better angle. The Masters Rules Committee initially cleared the drop, but after Woods explained his thinking in a post-round interview, officials realized the drop did not follow the letter of Rule 26.1, which required the ball to be dropped as close as possible to the original spot. By then, Woods had already signed his scorecard. The committee faced a dilemma: disqualify the tournament's biggest star or acknowledge their own role in the confusion. They issued a 2-stroke penalty, but allowed Woods to keep playing, citing their own review process and a recent change that permitted exceptions in cases of committee error. This high-profile situation exposed gaps in how rules were communicated and enforced, especially in real time. The fallout led to a rewrite of Rule 14.4 in 2019, clarifying drop procedures and requiring officials to consult with players before scorecards are signed. Now, every major championship spells out drop zone rules in detail, and officials are expected to act quickly when questions arise. Lexi Thompson was leading the 2017 ANA Inspiration when a rules official approached her on the 13th tee. She learned she was being assessed a 4-stroke penalty for something that had happened the previous day. A television viewer had emailed tournament officials, pointing out that Thompson had replaced her ball slightly off its original spot on the 17th green in the third round. The violation had gone unnoticed until the viewer's message, and by the time officials acted, Thompson had already signed an incorrect scorecard. The penalty, 2 strokes for the ball placement and 2 more for the scorecard, turned her 3-shot lead into a deficit in the middle of her final round. The timing of the announcement created an uproar. Critics argued that revealing a penalty mid-round based on a remote viewer's tip gave an unfair advantage to competitors and undermined the integrity of live play. The fallout prompted USGA and R&A to introduce Decision 34-310, later written into Rule 20.2D, which set clear protocols for when and how penalties are disclosed. Now officials must ensure that all players are notified in a way that preserves fairness, and viewer call-ins are handled with stricter scrutiny. Thompson's heartbreak reshaped the rules, putting player equity and timely communication at the center of modern enforcement. Dustin Johnson arrived at the 72nd hole of the 2010 PGA Championship at Whistling Straits tied for the lead, needing par to reach a playoff. His drive landed in a patch of trampled sand, surrounded by spectators and dotted with footprints, far from any raked bunker. Johnson surveyed the lie, grounded his club, and played his shot, believing he was outside any hazard. Minutes later, officials confronted him. Under local rules, every sandy area on the course, no matter how rough or unkempt, was considered a bunker. Rule 13.4 forbade grounding the club in a hazard, and Johnson's routine move now carried a 2-stroke penalty. The ruling dropped him from a tie for 1st to 5th place, erasing his chance at a major title. The fallout was immediate. Players and fans questioned how a course could hide so many invisible hazards. Tournament organizers faced a reckoning. By January 1, 2019, the USGA and the R&A rewrote the rules. Penalty areas were redefined, and players could finally ground their club in most sandy waste. The chaos at Whistling Straits forced golf's rulemakers to close a loophole that had punished players for mistakes of geography, not skill. Keegan Bradley's victory at the 2011 PGA Championship sent a clear message. The anchored putting stroke was no longer a fringe technique. Players like Bradley and Matt Kuchar began to dominate leaderboards with long and belly putters anchored against their bodies, igniting debate across the sport. By 2013, 4 of the previous 6 major champions, including Webb Simpson and Adam Scott, had won using this method. Traditionalists argued that anchoring removed the challenge of a free swinging stroke, while others insisted it simply leveled the playing field for those struggling with conventional putting. The controversy reached a breaking point in November 2013 when the R&A and USGA announced Rule 14-1B. In making a stroke, the player must not anchor the club, either directly or by use of an anchor point. The rule would take effect on January 1st, 2016, giving players and manufacturers just 2 years to adapt. The ban forced pros to overhaul their putting techniques and sent equipment companies scrambling to redesign putters that complied with the new standard. The decision drew sharp criticism from some, but the governing bodies stood firm, insisting that anchoring had fundamentally altered the nature of the stroke. With one rule, the game's leaders reasserted the primacy of tradition over innovation, and the anchored putter was relegated to history. Casey Martin's fight for a place on the PGA Tour began with a simple request: the right to use a golf cart. Born with Klippel-Trenaunay syndrome, Martin faced pain and risk with every step. The PGA Tour, holding fast to its walking-only rule, denied his accommodation. So Martin took his case to court, arguing that the Americans with Disabilities Act should apply to professional golf. The legal battle stretched for years, winding through district courts and the Ninth Circuit, before reaching the highest court in the country. On June 29, 2001, the United States Supreme Court ruled 7-2 in Martin's favor. The majority opinion declared that allowing a cart did not fundamentally alter the competition, and that the essence of golf lay in shot making, not walking. The PGA Tour was compelled to create a formal process for disabled players to request accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act, rewriting its policy overnight. Martin, now able to compete with a cart, became the first and only player to win such an exception at the sport's top level. His case set a precedent not just for golf, but for all professional sports, proving that fairness and access could be protected without changing the heart of the game. The ripple effects reached beyond the fairways, as leagues and organizers across the country re-examined their own rules in light of Martin's victory. Across all these cases, one pattern stands out. Golf's rules are not static. They evolve only when individual players push the boundaries. Each challenge exposes the game's blind spots and forces change. That is why golf remains a living sport, shaped by those bold enough to test its limits.